Clearly, I'm still getting the hang of all this. But there is all this fun little tools to play with. I'm learning how to stream across multiple platforms. I found some copyright-free music that I don't hate. So that's good. And as you see, if you read the title, description, depending on where or how you're watching this, you're seeing that or not. I'm still very much exploring how I want to be playing with this, but I really love the fact that there's just space with this whole 24/7 live streaming possibility to explore, to play, and to find other ways of expressing that are outside of, I don't know, this professional veneer that I've created over the past several years in my desire to gain greater, to be seen really for the wisdom that I have cultivated and developed over the years, despite the fact that the way in which I got much of it has been so highly unorthodox, the description. And so, okay, I do very much have my academic background around sexuality and gender, and from a Western perspective, in universities, undergrad and graduate level, and dove into the Eastern, the esoteric of Tantra and Taoist sexuality, and even further esoteric elements of working with energies and sexual energy and mythologies of yesteryear, and then how that intersects with our Western minds and Western approaches to sex and relationship and men and women, and went to the Institute for the Advanced Study of Human Sexuality and became, what am I called, a certified sexologist through the American College of Sexologists International. Such a mouthful. And so I've got all of that, but just as much of a potent and powerful part of my of the that which I have to share, it isn't just based in the books. It's this wild fucking ride of a life that I have walked, because damn has it been wild. And now at turning 44 next month, having a family, currently living in the suburbs, and with my life having, tamed comparatively, though it is all relative, this perspective that I hold, especially looking backwards on just how insanely over the top the 7-year erotic rockstar journey, the 7-year erotic rockstar chapter of my life really was. And those of you who are catching this, I hear that discoverability is not that great, especially on some of these platforms, which I know I'm shadow banned on already, and look at some of parts of these titles and descriptions. So I know that's an issue, but if you, for those who are watching this, what have you, if you can let me know how the sound is coming through, both my audio as well as this downtempo music that I've believe you should be hearing as well, that's very helpful to me too. That I can see, especially in retrospect, just how nuts my life was. There's elements of it that I can't even imagine bringing back in today. There are other parts, I definitely miss. And then there are parts that I'm still very much living. And then there are the parts that are just like, I don't have the energy for that today. Entering my mid-40s, I have 2 small children, lots of sleepless nights in a very different way, and but still, I think sometimes people expect or want me to look back at my erotic rockstar years with a sense of kind of judgment about them, or like a less evolved version of me, etc. And on one hand, yes, of course that's true. I mean, fuck, I really hope that's true. I mean, do you want to be the same you as you were a decade ago? Somehow I really doubt that. So I mean, in that sense, yes, absolute growth and evolution. But there was, I don't really look at it as a right or wrong, or even a better and a worse. They're just very different time periods in my life, and god damn, I wouldn't change or trade that time period in my life for anything. So I'm finding my ways to figure out how to share about. No, I mean, particularly this 7-year erotic rockstar time period of my life. I call it the erotic rockstar years, the erotic rockstar chapter, while also sharing them in a way that doesn't get me banned off multiple platforms. Because the truth of the story is that chapter of my life is not the most PG. And in this world of ever increasing big tech censorship, I've been facing that censorship with the sexuality elements of my work since before it became a thing to talk about. But now I definitely noticed over the years, I came to, mostly unconsciously, I just increasingly start to self-censor. And I mean, who's got fucking time for that shit? I'm here to reactivate my creativity, to share with you that which I have been hesitant to share, but which I know has a lot to offer, and it's really fucking entertaining. And I've got to figure out how to connect with my audience. I got to figure out how to connect with my audience around this when I am shadow banned on multiple platforms, when I am trying to figure out this new Twitch platform, well, new to me, with both its just a high learning curve, its own challenges with discoverability, and all the elements that, I'm still very much learning about its tech and its culture and its community, while try not to get. I mean, somebody commented in my last stream that, dude, I hate to tell you, but you're gonna get banned before you get going. And that is my great fear. So if you notice me being a little bit, what do I say here? How do I say this? That's why. Because so my stories I want to share. Historically, like, I haven't been one to kiss and tell. I really try to walk that line very carefully in my book. So there are definitely some things in there. Certainly some fucking powerful stories. But a lot of the very, like, we'll say the more triple X stories are more hinted at. And there are ways in which I want to, like, stop fucking hinting and share the juicy fucking bits of these stories. Because one, like, I got a way with words. I've got a good, I can tell the stories. And, even audio is now being tracked, Even audio can get you censored in one form or another. And the last piece, of course, is I need to connect with you so that I have something to really bounce off of. The more that you engage with me, the more that I see you here, the more that I know, like, okay, I have a real audience. Okay, look, it's actually, like, working. Like, people are being impacted by this. The more I shine. Some people at least say that's like public speaking is like the single greatest fear that most people end up having, even greater than death. Blah blah blah. God, I am definitely one of those people who are the exact opposite of that. Like, you put me on stage, you put a microphone in my hand, you put a camera on me, you put an audience in front of me, what have you. Like, I'll tend to fucking light up more than ever before. I'll tend to, like, have so much of my best self come through. And so I need you. I need your presence. I need your energy. I need your engagement, because it gives me energy that then I can reflect back to you. I can share back to you that much energy and that much of what it is that I have to share with you. So Preferably directly in these comments, which hopefully, if all this is working, will come through whichever of these sites that you're commenting on, and put it together in this aggregate chat box, which I never even heard of until last week. and I'll be able to respond directly to you. So I'm going to continue with the backstory in the meantime. Ultimately, the audience, you that I'm most interested in attracting, is not the people who I've been building my business around for the past 8+ years, 10 years. I built so much of my business around, I would say, 30 to 60-year-olds. And especially, yeah, that sounds about right. And I really have a desire to skew that down now. Yeah, I'm at a point in my life, I'm a father, and I want to take the pains and the struggles and the triumphs of this like hard-earned wisdom life that I've lived. You know what I'm saying? That and help, just particularly share and impact the generation below me, to make your whole process easier, your whole life path easier. How long have you been a woman for? Well, I know you're trolling me. I will say that I've only dabbled in that. Unless there's that whole saying, you are what you eat, in which case I can play too. I'm originally from New York. You fuck with me, I can fuck back. Some of it, again, might take me a little bit. You could call me either one, man. He, him, they, them, she, her, whatever you want. It's cool. It's cool. I know who I am. That's the thing. And thank you. I'm glad I was able to grab you. Actually getting a compliment of you have a good sense of humor. I'm trying, like, you've got to have a little self-deprecation when you can also have enough ego to call yourself the fucking Er0tic Rockstar and then the face of the evolved masculine. I mean, if I can play with such grandiosity as well as get lost in my own ego as much as I certainly have at points in my life, I better learn to also be able to laugh at myself, to poke fun at myself, to realize how fucking ridiculous I can be, how parts of my journey I was very unintentionally funny, and, maybe it's easier to laugh in hindsight. But, it's been a wild ride. It's been a ridiculous journey. It's been filled with incredible, ecstatic pleasures that when I was younger I never would have even dreamed of. Like, my wildest fucking fantasies did not hold a candle to what life has actually turned to be. And I think I hear police sirens. I'm recently back from 7 months in Asia, and particularly 3.5 months in Bali. Like, I never heard police sirens. It's a little weird. So, to take all of that, the incredible highs and the crushing lows, with my definite bipolar type tendencies that I had through so much of my life, don't really identify with it now, but that's a whole other story. And share in a way that, if you're particularly if you're a younger man in your 20s, we'll say, who's maybe even young 20s, still very much trying to figure this out, because any of us really have it figured out. And you're open, you're seeking, and you're like, maybe you're looking for a healthy male role model in the way that I was really fucking seeking and aching for that healthy male role model, even though much of the time I wouldn't have even known that was true. Then I just want to be able to provide that for you to the best of my ability. Not because I have it all figured out, not because I've got it all perfect, because I'm not. It has been a highly imperfect path. What I am good at, though, is picking apart my life incessantly and being able to speak to it in a way that can draw value from it. So, can generally take these things and express it in a way that other people can be like, oh, like I can see how that applies to my life, or oh, I can, like, that causes me to see things and look at things in a new way. So that's really my endeavor here, is to help. That's all, to help. You get from it what you get from it, and maybe all of the help that it is giving you a little bit of entertainment on a late Friday night as you're otherwise like just flicking around, bouncing from room to room, scrolling through your feeds or what have you, and you're like, oh, what's this fucker about? So, what am I about? My life has been punctuated by a high focus around sex, sexuality, women, and trying to figure out what it means to be a man in this modern world, and what kind of man I want to be in the midst of all of this fucking non-stop barrage of messaging of what it's supposed to mean, and what I'm supposed to be or not supposed to be, what not to do, coming at you from every fucking angle, often in complete contradiction to one another and maybe itself. It caused me enough confusion, enough pain, and enough pain in my relating, particularly. Women, particularly in my relationships to women, have been the single biggest, growth path of my life. Women have inspired greatness out of me. Women have challenged every fucking belief and sense of me that I have in my body. They have driven me to the brink of insanity. They have allowed me to experience extraordinary pleasures. They've been my biggest teachers. And I don't think that's the way, Molly. Not right now. And right now I'm completely sober. But I've done more than my share of Molly in my life, in a wide range of psychedelics. A bit of drinking, but I was never a big drinker. I was never a big, yeah, let's go get fucking shit-faced. I always said, like, alcohol was one of my least favorite drugs. I really love these notions of expansion of consciousness, and I always found like alcohol tended to be more of the opposite. It's never really a fan of Coke either, though I've done that probably 5-6 times. One of which was snorting off of a woman's nipple inside of a Hollywood mansion after filming a music video in the backyard. I was not the star of it. I was kind of a background person in it. But I knew then I didn't like Coke, but I did it because, like, just seems to fit the story, and I'll do anything for a story. And so my life is filled with stories. Yeah, so no. Just responding to N64 Expansion Pack 3. What a name. I really thought that initially that you would just spam. Coke, yeah, so I just was not a fan of Coke. It's tends to be ego-aggrandizing, like just more like, I don't know how to describe it beyond that. That look is the biggest. That and I just want to do more Coke. And I'm like, what? Why would I do that versus these other things which just seem to do so much more for me? So, plus I quite honestly, white powders tend to always scare me a bit. Just not so much the powder themselves, but mostly the fact that you don't know what the fuck this is. I mean, now testing kits are way more common than them, but it's like, I don't know. You're just somebody that of, this white powder they got from who knows who and when, and I'm supposed to just know that this isn't something that I don't want to be putting in my body. So yeah, I was definitely much more into what I thought of as the good drugs, mushroom, MDMA, acid, marijuana, consciousness expansion, giving me new sense, perspective, shifting my paradigms, helping me see things and experience life in new ways. Those are the things that really drew me. So quite honestly, outside of these substances, that's just how I've engaged with life. Like whatever it is that can cause that kind of opening in me. I mean, my entire life path, this entire work that I do, transformation, growth, like, it's rooted in that same thing. Let's step into a completely different sense of self, a completely different way of seeing and experiencing life. So it's just constantly changing forms. What did you do in Asia? First of all, thank you for all of the engagement. Like I said, it really helps. Otherwise, I'll just go on one tangent into the next, and instead, you can help lead my tangents. So I've actually been to Asia quite a few times. I've been to I've got to recount, somewhere around 35 countries. I don't remember. This past trip, though, was 7 months outside the U.S., which is the longest stretch straight that I've been outside the U.S. I was heading to Bali, but 2 days before my flights, Indonesia closed their borders. Well, meaning me, my wife, our two small children, 4-year-old and 1.5-year-old, well, one then, not even one then, had just packed up our home, gotten rid of it, put all our things in storage. I turned down the knob of my business way down so that I can kind of unplug, take a sabbatical, as I was calling it, and go. So I'm like, okay, so we can go to Bali now. I'm going somewhere. Where am I going? My wife and the kids had actually already gone to do you miss me enough to get my name right, dude? Good to see you here otherwise. I will answer the other question in a moment. Sorry, it's a pet peeve of mine. The wife and kids were already in Japan, and they ended up being there for about 6 weeks, if I remember correctly. And I was supposed to go to Bali first, do a reconnaissance mission first, go on my own sexy adventures. I had a full pass from wifey to just go have sexy adventures, play, etc. And then her and the kids would come a month later. But by that time, I should already have found us our home that they can just land in when they arrive from Japan. Instead of okay, now where are we going to stay for 6 months? So instead, where am I going? Look around, and Thailand has a sandbox program that they set up to deal with Corona. These two islands, one of which is Phuket, where we ended up going, that they basically try to make COVID free. They did a heavy vaccination drive and then made the requirements for entry very high, so that then when you arrive, you're quarantined to the island. So it's oh no, I have to spend 2 weeks stuck on this beautiful tropical island. The horror. So that's what I ended up going there. It's very interesting being in Phuket. It's particularly during the pandemic, it is known as a global national party destination, but not during the pandemic. It was more ghost town during the first two. Well, ended up being there longer than intended. We'll get there in a moment. And ended up being half the stores or establishments were boarded up. There was no one in the streets. I loved it for where I was in my life in that moment. I can't really imagine what it would have been like if I landed there with literally an extra 1 million plus people on that island, all there to get shit-faced, hi, fuck around, etc. That it instead felt more like got the island to myself. Not to myself, to myself, but the locals who live there were many of it. There are definitely those who are hurting as a result. There's like the island's economy was built off tourism, and it was just gone, like 99% gone. But also, I think that there was just a different kind of connection with the people there as a result. I thought I was going there for a couple weeks. Turns out, just until the Bali border, Indonesian border reopened. 3 months later, so I ended up being there about a month before the family arrived, and during that month, I had sexy adventures. First, I started out, I'm like, okay, I have this free pass, so to speak. I can play however I want. I can do whatever I want. And after our marriage being closed for, I don't know, 5 years. And so the first thing I did was fuck around. I definitely sledded out on first arrival. And it wasn't particularly fulfilling. It was like, yeah, freedom, I can do whatever. And it is, I don't know if this is really doing anything for me. Then I met this woman who I matched with her on Tinder before I came out to Thailand, and I swipe. A couple hundred people later, one person really there are people who are like, oh, she's cute and blah blah blah, but there's one person who's just like, who is that? So, she ended up being a big part of Thailand, and we did ultimately end up connecting, and it was a bit of a slow burn in getting to know one another. And then we were exploring shooting some erotic film together, not full, not like corn, as they say on Twitch, with P, but very erotically charged was really the focus. And might I add, she's Chinese, and her English was definitely a second language. In some ways, our communication was really solid, and in other ways, it was one miss after another. So I really try to lay out for her like what it is that I'm doing, my vision with these kind of sexy film things that I'm working on. And she had her caveats. We kind of worked out or did like where boundaries are. She was just like, basically no pussy shots. And then we were just kind of, okay, no problem. Let's play within that. Let's find where those things are. And I spent a lot of time with her, particularly over that first month. And then, working out agreements with wifey and family to be able to spend the right kind of time in this creative pursuit, so to speak. And amazingly, I have a wife who's understood this creative pursuit of mine for so long, and generally celebrated me being in this exploration with this new woman. And God, it was such a mixed experience. This is what I mean. Like I say, oh, my erotic rockstar years are 8 years ago, and ended 8 years ago, and my life has teamed out so much since then. Oh well, it's all relative. This is part of it being all relative. So I'll answer that question. How old are you? Next month I turn 44. It blows my fucking mind, to be honest. Like mid 40s, really? Wow. But then I also think this is what they are. It's pretty good. My energy levels aren't what they were. Aside from that, and aches and pains, fucking A. But aside from that, it's awesome. It really is awesome. So, So Thailand was definitely a lot of sexy adventures, but I ended up falling into a lot of the same, I don't know, pattern that I'd experienced with prior relationships before my wife, which in some ways isn't surprising. One of probably the biggest reason why I was so drawn to this woman was that she fit that same mold, that same pattern of woman that I had been with so many times in my life. This wildly expressed, dripping in her sexual energy, um, creatively artistic, a woman with, I don't know, very strong emotional energy and very strong sexual energy. Some of your questions are a little weird, son. Do you use sunscreen? Not that often, to be honest. My skin tone doesn't overly require it. Once a year or less, I regret not using it more, but generally not. Fuck. Where was I? Same pattern woman. And I tend to think of her as a dakini type. If you don't know this word, dakini, Dakini. It comes from tantric tradition, and what we'll say this like neo-tantric Western perspective on the dakini is this sacred sexual healer, this woman whose sexuality is a core part of her path, but it is like in very, very much in service to others, and particularly men, like utilizing her sexuality and her sexual energy to help like activate, open this man before her. But also, I think that notion of what I just described, I've romanticized a bit in my own mind, and so I've also have had a tendency anyway, to project that onto certain women who hold these certain elements, but then aren't necessarily as noble as what I just described, as selfless as what I just described, and I'm very happy to answer your questions, N64, but can you try at least have some of them being a little on topic? Because once I pull off, I'm like, wait, where was I? So, no, I was never in a band. I know I've got the whole rock star look vibe thing sometimes going, but that was a decision. I spent 7 years identifying as this erotic rock star. So the part of my exploration and my presentation of self was how do I feel more rock star? How do I make my life more rock star? And the biggest thing about this rock star element, okay, somebody's gonna have to bring me back to that other story because I'm gonna go off on this one for a minute. The biggest thing about that rock star archetype that I loved so much is that I always felt like I didn't fit in. I always felt like these notions, these boxes that society generally tend to place for people of how you are supposed to be, etc., like just never fit well for me, and I never felt like I did it very well. And so this notion or idea of the rock star was like, well, the rock star is not supposed to fit in. The rock star is not supposed to be all like tamed. That wildness is exactly what we want and celebrate in those rock stars. So I used it as a means to give myself permission to be in ever more full expression of whatever I wanted to do or be, or however I wanted to express, without having all of society voices in my head around shoulds and should nots. Instead, like, how do I get in touch with this and hear like my deepest truth, and trusting in myself and trusting in my heart and trusting in my decisions versus all the fucking programmed voices. I'm flow of consciousness. You of all people can't hate anyone for that. No, I don't hate you for it, dude. I think that's in response to my question of, can you like keep them a little more on topic? Yeah, no, I mean, quite honestly, I'm appreciating your presence and your engagement. So. Lurkers, you're very welcome to engage too. Or lurk, that's fine too. So they say at good sexy parties, like voyeurism is a form of participation. In other words, just coming to the sex party to watch. It's okay. And you're watching is part of it. It allows other people to experience being watched. Well, be a voyeur. I'm an exhibitionist. We good. I'm also a bit of a voyeur. So, do you identify with Tom Cruise and Magnolia? Is that really how you see me? No, not at all. I see. Not at all isn't actually the right word, because there is a thread of commonality for sure. I believe he was based off of God. What the fuck's his name? One of those like pioneering pickup guys. I can even see his face. I think I even met him briefly one time. He's quite old at this point. I don't think he was ever quite young doing this. I can't remember. I was really, my interest was curiosity and studying what the fuck people are doing out there more than like a fandom. But anyway, Tom Cruise's character was based off of him. Maybe it'll come to me later. So there's this embedded misogyny in that character and in his worldview perspective, and my route was always its opposite. If anything, I always identified more with Don Juan DeMarco or Casanova, as a lover of women. Like my drive is not in like, fuck these bitches type of an energy. It's always been more of, I'm so utterly fascinated and in awe of women, and by such deep fascination. It caused me to dive in so much. And yes, like I mentioned like deliciousness in one of my descriptions on one of these channels. Like I love tasting women, the wide range of women from all different parts of the world, all backgrounds, all colors, all ways of thinking, just my tasting. I also mean I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to do that. Sorry, I just had a little piece of food stuck in my hand there. That that taste of her on a physical level, but also just that like the taste of her soul or spirit, like who she is and how she functions in the world. It's just like, I want to know it. I want to like. Yeah, it's like the biblical phrase of to know someone is to to sleep with them, to have sex with them. I really do believe and have found that sex is such a powerful way of knowing someone. That depends on how you have sex, of course. But if you do so with with an openness or maybe even a drive towards intimacy, sex can be incredibly intimate. And, we've gotten, as humans in modern age, we've gotten incredibly sex to avoid intimacy. God damn, humans are endlessly inventive. We do have the ability to open up this incredible intimacy, this softness, this vulnerability, this way of like seeing somebody naked, like literally like naked, like without the facade, without the like all the ways in which we can kind of protect ourselves in the world, but instead to let something else out and to be seen and to be experienced, while seeing and experiencing and touching those softest parts of somebody else, literally and figuratively. I'm a woman, at least for a few years. Wait, you've been a woman for a few years, or were you commenting on two different things that I said and I only check the chat box every now and then? Just curiosity, that's all. Trying to understand what's going on here. Yes. That's interesting. I just watched this really well done video on, I think on Facebook Watch. Something like It was one of those things where you've got two very different sets of people and put them in a room together to talk, essentially. And it was like conservative men and trans men. It was fascinating. It was really well done. Buck Angel was in it. If you know of him, I've known of him since I was like 20, probably. I think he said he was 59 now, which kind of boggled my mind. He was coming out as trans like 40 years ago. Can you fucking imagine what that must have been like? Jesus fuck. And he's one I've never paid like close attention to, but it's kind of bounced around my orbit, and we even have multiple mutual connections. So like I've gotten little bits and pieces of his journey over the past 20 years, and I'm just like, damn, dude, fucking impressive, really impressive way to be a leader, Oh my god, I find this so entertaining. So can we see some of the footage from Phuket? Yeah, I've got some. Oh wait, do you mean the sexy footage? You've been lurking here for a bit, because I was talking about that good 15 minutes ago. And I'm glad you're finding this entertaining. Not the sexy footage yet. First of all, I have no idea how I'd even put that into this chat here. Let me jump back to that story. So me and this woman definitely had some very enjoyable experiences together. We also really butted heads together. We were both Aries, and we both would live up to the stereotypes, stubborn, hard-headed, and just it got to a point where it was like every single day we're coming into conflict with one another. Well, I think we were meeting up like 3 days a week, but like each one of those, every day there was conflict involved. Not only conflict, but always conflict. And I was just like, fuck, this is not like I spent years and years with this. Was just life, especially every relationship I was in. This is how it is. Let's like hot sex and constant conflict. And I've been finally done with that. I finally have like a healthy, stable relationship, marriage. Blah, blah, blah. What the fuck am I doing with doing this again? No. No. So I ultimately cut it short after like 2 months of trying to do training with her on like, okay, the things that I wanted her to really like get and start to integrate and embody around depth, really around intimacy, around the things I wanted to really capture on film, around really connecting here. And how do you capture like present hot erotic energy in all of its subtleties and intensity through the camera. And I really wanted to bring in these elements that I've learned through my tantric path. And like, I don't know how. I don't know if it's a matter of she just was not in the place to learn the core of what I was trying to transmit to her, or if it was something in the way in which I was trying to do so, but it just was not fucking working. It kind of blew my mind as to how much it was not working. But we had some very fun, sexy experiences nonetheless. But about 2 weeks prior to film date, I was just like, this is not gonna work. I finally accepting this is not going to work. And so I ended it with her right then and there. And I was bummed, because I'd spent 2 months like putting a lot of time and energy into her, trying to move this in a direction where I could capture something really sexy, really hot, and something really new in this world of constantly so fully saturated, pornified world. I really wanted to capture and bring forth something new. And that's in line with the flavor of how I see things and experience them myself, and yet I don't see out there. Okay, it's not gonna work here. But I'd put together this production team. I'd found this world-class fucking cinematographer who I connected well with, who had a red camera, which, if you know anything about video cameras, is like top of the fucking line, and it's super pro, and the rest of this team, and I'm like, well, what am I gonna? If I leave here like this, it's gonna be so painful for me to yet another, erotic film project that I've dove into that's not gonna end up seeing the light of day. Fuck. And so my incredible wifey leans in and said, well, I have stronger boundaries or tighter boundaries than this other woman had, but if you want to get creative, I'll do something with you. I'm like, sounds great. Let's do it. And it turned out to be such a blessing that this woman had, let's call her Mulan because she liked that pseudonym, that she had, I don't know, that didn't work out with her, because if it had, then I never would have done this 2 days of fucking incredible film shooting with my wife, which turned out like we got awesome footage. Like, you hear me, I'm speaking about it, I'm lighting up, I've got this big smile on my face. The footage is incredible. The experience was one of those like peak life experiences I get to share with my wife. We got access, thanks to the pandemic. We got access to this like gorgeous waterfall that we were able to have blocked off just for us to film at for next to nothing. I think it cost me like $100 maybe to shoot at this, what became a private waterfall place in nature for the day. We also booked this other, was normally a VIP after hours club, and with like 5 levels or something like that. But that had so many different places in it that we could shoot in. So those are the 2 primary scenes and places. We shot one day, shot the other day, and it's like got really sexy. I call it a sexy non-explicit film. And I'm still trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to release this, because where can I really it's kind of too hot for Facebook, but not explicit enough for Pornhub. Where does it go? So trying to figure all this out. And so anyway, we leave there. This is like the last days before we head to Bali, and I see the couple of things here. I'll respond in a moment. Sexy non-explicit, I know. That oh look, I forget that I can do this. Watch this. Take a look. This is new for me anyway. Bah! I feel ya, Aries woman. LOL. I am celebrating your commitment. Wow, 2 months. Sheesh. 2 months. What? Oh, of like going hard with this fucking other Aries woman and us butting heads constantly and just fire meeting fire and burn. Like again, this is a little ego based, but I have spent so many years now doing so much intentional introspective work, looking at myself and learning about my patterns and how to communicate more effectively, and taking ownership and responsibility for my communications and my impact and blah blah blah, like fucking big things that did not come easy, took a lot of work. But this woman I'm engaging with, she didn't do that. Most people haven't, and she certainly hasn't. And it showed, so it's like, okay, when we're having this like I can like pause and get do some introspection and look at myself, and she would just go straight into projection. So I'm looking at, okay, so where's my responsibility here, and she's looking at me seeing where it's my fault. So I 10 years ago that would have entrapped me, because it did, but today, like, I know better. I know what to not take personally. I know what to take responsibility for and what's not mine. and what's not mine. So both are really important. All right, now look at that. So I love these little tools. I can make things appear and make them go away and all these things. So so we fly to Bali. First of all, keep in mind, me, wife, 2 small children, and our nanny, Japanese nanny that we brought from the U.S. And we raise our children bilingual and bicultural. So, I'm the one who has to really fucking work on my Japanese. Otherwise, I'm the only one in the family who doesn't speak it. Long journey that seems to be. So flying, my kids have already been on so many planes, like you wouldn't believe. And we're flying from Phuket to Jakarta in Indonesia, where we have to quarantine for a few days in a quarantine hotel, which is way too much money, especially for what it is, and then fly to Bali. And fucking how many PCR tests I took? How many PCR tests my little ones have taken? Less than me and my wife? Because there are a couple times where they weren't required, or a couple times where I could do in the mouth instead of the nose, but still way too many up their fucking nostrils. And Jesus, in Thailand, they were just like poking the shit out of your brain from the inside. Bali, they were much nicer about it. They're nice about everything. So I get in Bali, and we now have all this incredible. We have like 200 gorgeous, sexy clips from these 2 very different flavored shoots. One we call like the light scene and the dark scene, the outdoor scene and the indoor scene, and the like devotional and the erotic desire one. And they're not so cut and dry as that, but that's, if you want to think of like broad stroke flavors, those are the 2 sets of flavors that we played with, and then looking to how we weave them together. So I'm going through this footage and trying to figure out, okay, so we kind of threw this together last minute, so there wasn't like storyboards and a clear plan of, okay, this is what we're shooting, this is what we're getting, this is the final product we're really looking for, blah blah blah. It was more like, okay, so we created a container for magic to happen in. Magic happened, we caught some magic. Now what is this exactly? What are we doing with this? So I'm sitting there looking through this, like really feeling into it. I get the sense of, I need to this needs a voiceover. I'm pretty sure like that's the thing that's really requiring to kind of tie it all together. And I'm like, fuck, I hate that. I hate writing like that. I hate, like, it causes me so much stress, and just sit there like, where do I begin? And all these things, like, oh my God, the artist in me was just in the struggling pain part of the artistic process. And then I'm like, okay, well, my intent with this really is like this devotional aspect of our sexuality, and how as men we can express devotion through our lover's body and in a way that doesn't weaken us, but actually draw us more greatly into our power. And I speak of this in different aspects of my work, but like I want to show it, and so that's an aspect of what I was playing with this footage. So I'm like, okay, well, one of the last chapters of my book, The Evolved Masculine, Be the Man the World Needs and the One She Craves, buy it on Amazon. Oh, better books are still sold, not stolen, sold. Well, however you get it. Is there's a chapter called Devotion to the Feminine. It's like chapter 54, 53, 52, one of those. Out of 54 chapters, it's one of the last ones. And I mean, it took me, the journey I was drawing for men to follow me on, like, took that long to get to the place where I felt like I could present that in a way that can really make sense and feel good and you could be open to, without I don't know, any concern, hesitation, resistance. And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be something in here. Maybe I could just pull quotes from my book, or pull excerpts, and use that as a voiceover. And I'm like trying. I'm like, I don't know. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good. What do I do about this? And ultimately, like, okay, maybe it's not that. Maybe instead of it being like, let me pull excerpts, I could use that as inspiration. So then I'm like, okay, well, why don't I reach out to my editrix, the woman who helped me like with figuring out the right structure and the voice and the putting together of my book, Gillian Pothier, if you are familiar with her, and see if maybe she can help me with this. But since writing my book, her whole career has gone up quite a bit, and congratulations. We definitely don't always see eye to eye on everything, but she's really bringing her beliefs, her thoughts, her work out, and is really being received by her audience. So great. Downside is she just didn't have. She was like, I so want to do this, and I just don't have the space for it. So she recommended somebody to me, and I did a whole back and forth with her, and ultimately decided, yes, let's go, let's do this. And that was an interesting experience, because in some ways it was disappointing. Like we just created this 2-week intensive of just meeting regularly over Zoom, and dive in to create this little cauldron to write this out. You know what I'm saying. And just say, you know what I'm saying, whenever I'm lost, I'm tripping over my own tongue. That, oh fuck, I made a kratom-based tea an hour ago. Lukewarm at best. So second half, she kind of got distracted with some things in her life and didn't quite show up for me the way that I had hoped. However, the first half, it gave me what I needed. It activated something in me. I went from like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, to it starting to pour out of me. And what poured out of me was particularly surprising. It was what I'll just refer to as tantric poetry. And I'd never written poetry before. Well, that's not true. I'd really written one other poem in my life. And here's the really trippy thing. It was to the same woman. They were both to the woman who's now my wife. The first time was 18 years ago. I should have said that part first. It was 18 years ago to the same woman. And when we were first meeting one another, when I was first like, oh my God, impacted by her, and was, wanted to know her, and was falling for her, even though at the time she had a boyfriend, and just kind of making clear that she's attracted to me, but maybe next lifetime, as Erykah Badu had said. And this poem came out of me then. And I like to think that the poem, this recent poem, is way more sophisticated and, objectively better, etc. But nonetheless, my wife says she still has it. I want her to dig it up now that we're back in California. So I think that's very trippy. The only 2 poems I've ever really written in my life to date were 18 years apart and to the same woman. So this tantric erotic poetry started pouring out of me, and I became obsessed with it. I was on sabbatical from my work, from my business, was largely turned down. I wasn't doing all the business building things that I normally do. So instead, I had this space, and I just became obsessed with writing and rewriting and practicing performing it, and that doesn't seem right, and because there's coming up with the words, and then there's coming up with the delivery. How do I speak these words? So then we go to this our first real party in Bali, and maybe 100 people, and there's 3 parts to it. In the late night part of it, it was like a tea ceremony. Yeah, like a bunch of low tables with people sitting, very Japanese style, low tables, uh, all all throughout the room, and the tea servers at each of them. And we'd have like a little cup that's like shot glass at best, and pour these little things of hot tea, and creates this vibe, and there's like some good, yummy, down tempo electronic music playing. Anyway, then that moved into, in that same room, this shibari performance. Shibari being the Japanese rope bondage performance. It was done by these 2 women. Swear, my life is filled with constant stories, many of which are kind of sexy. And these are good because I'm able to so far find my place, except for that little needing to get the food off of my fingers with my tongue earlier. I'm able to share the stories that are pretty sexy, but can be expressed in a way that's not gonna give me too many problems here. If you help me figure out a place and a way to go full on with my stories, I'm happy to share. So the shibari performance is this Japanese rope bondage as a performance. It's done by these 2 women, one white woman, one Asian woman, and one was tying up the other in this very artistic manner. These each knot perfectly placed so that the binds themselves create a certain beauty, especially across her skin and the way it's shaped around her body, as well as kind of making a performance of their intentional playing with power and power struggle. So it was really fun. It was a really great performance. But the truth is, most of my attention, relatively quickly, was not on what I was seeing. As scrumptious as that was, it was on what I was hearing. Because I was trying to figure out the whole few weeks before, I'm like trying to figure out, okay, so I'm writing this thing, but it needs some music or something. But how do I get music for this? All these like all these websites that have like subscription basis for using, for licensing musical content that you can use for your own content. I swear I checked so many of them, and they all have a clause in their terms of service, like, basically cannot be used with any sort of sexy, erotic, pornographic, obscene, etc., anything of that sort type of content. And I'm like, well, this very much lives on that edge. It could be argued in either direction, and I really don't want this to... I don't feel I can take the risk with this, because I am pouring so much into this. So anyway, I'm watching this shibari, sexy Japanese rope bondage performance by these 2 women. And when I start to hear this music playing, where I'm like, my ears perking up. Is this what I've been listening for or looking for? Listening kind of does make more sense, doesn't it? and it was very minimalistic. And then there's this like etheric female vocals over the top of it. And then I look and I realize, oh shit, there's this guy, I thought he was just DJing, but no, like he's actually making this music, this minimalistic music on the spot. And then I look over and there's a woman in front of her microphone singing these etheric vocals on the spot. And I'm just like, huh. So I reach out, make a point of connection while trying to with him, because she's singing. I'm not gonna fuck with that. Just to kind of make initial connection. Then after it ends, I go over and speak to him a little bit more, and I just get contact information, and I float a little bit about the idea, and then this starts communication, and basically sell him on the vision of what it is I'm doing, etc., and ultimately end up hiring them both to record with me. And so we found this fucking pretty epic recording studio in Ubud, or outside of Ubud, in Bali. Like gorgeous jungle environment, fully decked out. I mean, like serious money was put into this place. I do have photos and video from the inside of this place. Recording studio, and it's where people fly in internationally to record in Bali. So and reasonably priced because it's Bali. so we get in there, and I'm definitely a little nervous because I'm with these two, like, trained professional musicians who have been in these types of recording studios more than I have. I mean, I've done this, but this is very different from recording something more musically oriented, and we're going to be essentially ad-libbing together, or like I've been sharing with them recordings of my me into my iPhone, recording my performance of this of these lyrics, of this voiceover, of this tantric poetry, but actually doing it while being recorded in the studio, while they're making this music along with it. So we are kind of trying to match up with one another. That was definitely new. Thankfully, like, they're pros. They were able to work with me well. I think I did okay. Of course, if I could do it again, I'll hopefully do it better. But I think it went well. And then afterwards, this whole process of going through the editing process. I mean, this is where the artist in me is such, like, I'm so particular. So, again, I spent another month on this whole voiceover side of things. And now I'm still on, we've been working with the editor to get at least this initial 5-6 minute piece completed. So hopefully I can get this done, this sexy, tantric, erotic, but not explicit, poetry driven video out to share with you, however I figure out how to best share it with you. Of course, the big scary thing really is, God, fucking putting so much energy into this piece of art that is such an expression of my being, and for nobody to end up seeing it. So I would really like to figure out, to get clear on a good plan for that as best as possible leading in. So I'm all ears. If you've got ideas, we've got to do some things. Again, I think I worry about tech censorship. I also am like, okay, again, it's not Pornhub material though either, So this is a challenge. There's this gap, There's this gap between, like, where the things are ever increasingly being censored across social media. They're not being seen as appropriate for there, etc. And all the places that, like, anything goes, and hardcore porn is rampant, or maybe specifically designed for that. There's this, like, gap in between those two spaces. It's like, where does this stuff go? So I'm still trying to understand that. I'm still trying to figure out where this stuff goes, because I feel like that gap is a big part of what I'm interested in creating for. I like my brand is sexy. I want to share my brand of sexy with you because I don't see it. So about 40 minutes ago, I was asked the question, so what were you doing in Asia? There's my answer. Anyway, as you see, I've got stories. I just need a good reason to tell them, an audience to engage with, an energy to play with and respond to. And you let me know what you want to hear. I think especially the more like full on stories, there's gonna be something external that's gonna like catalyze it coming out of me. Yeah. I gotta say, I'm impressed. I'm I hope you're hearing the music. I hope the volume's right. Not loud enough that's overpowering my voice, and not too low that you can't really hear it. But like I've been really like, what the fuck do I do about, like, I want music because music's such a big part of my life, but I can't play any of my playlists that I've cultivated because DMCA, blah, 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 like strikes against you and getting your account deactivated or muted or what have you. And I'm like checking out all these DMCA free, copyright free music for streaming, and I'm just like, some of it's just fucking bad, and a lot of it's like okay, but for somebody who's like loves my fucking music, it wasn't really doing it for me. But I'm using Restream to record this right now, so it's sending out to Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, possibly Instagram if we did that part right today, but I believe Instagram's doing it like this, so we'll see how that worked out. Hopefully I'm not showing up on the screen like this somehow. Good night, Joanna. Sleep well. I'm glad you're enjoying the background music. But yeah, so it has some a whole series of built-in choices around music and audio, and I'm like, I poked around a little bit, and I'm enjoying this one. Of course, I prefer to have full control. That's a theme. I prefer to have full control and design the music exactly as I want it for this. But I can also point you to my favorite playlist. If you go to my Instagram, instagram.com/evolvedmasculine, and you check the what do you call it? Link in bio. I have one in there. This playlist, a sexy beat or two. It links to my favorite playlist I've made in Spotify. I don't know. It has nearly 150 people are following at present, and I just occasionally mention it. Things like this, or it's my profile. So maybe you'll like it too. See if I can share this here. I already got a message that popping up saying can't post messages to some channels. Okay, I don't know which channels that is, but maybe you're on one that can. Oh no, fuck! What happened? It just brought me to a login page when I try to send in that chat. Should I try doing that again? Fuck. I'll try again. There we go. I've also created Instagram.com/decodingwomen, but I haven't posted anything there yet. I'm still trying to figure out how fully married I am to this brand, this new brand of Decoding Women. The name of the new podcast. As the name of the podcast, I think it's great. I think there's a lot that we can do with it. How central my overall brand, I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. But like on Twitch, that is my username. And D3C0D1NGW0M3N, which if you could follow those hacker code for Decoding Women, it's just an interesting way to meet people, to meet people digitally through that username. I've gotten a mixture of responses to that already. I have a short little clip that my assistant pulled from one of I think my last stream where I shared about some of these different responses that I've gotten just from that name. Some people smile, they like it. Some people are like suspicious. Who are you? What do you want? Which I understand. There's plenty of reasons, not even just past but present, to have suspicion of men speaking about women. God, especially this whole like modern internet age with the quote unquote manosphere, and much of what can be found on Reddit and certain dark corners of the internet. the red pill and parts of the pickup community and MGTOW, men going their own way, etc. That again is just kind of dripping in, or at least tainted with an underlying misogyny. And I really like to believe that you're not going to find that here with things that I share. It's not necessarily going to be 100% 100% PC. That's not really my agenda, so to speak, either. My agenda, if anything, is to be true to myself and to hold a certain reverence for others, including and especially women, who, when I'm speaking about them, and men when I speak about them, for that matter. But we'll speak about decoding women for a moment. That, again, my way of speaking was certainly not always PG, and that can be of a sexual or even sexualized nature at times. And women can certainly really fucking turn me on and do all sorts of things to me. And physically, emotionally, spiritually. But the underlying thing there is a reverence, because I exist within me. And I do very much believe that reverence and eroticism can intersect, can be interwoven. And again, if anything, I like to be an example of that. So, because it's one of the examples that I wish that I had. I think I'm ending it for tonight. Hour and 15, 20 minutes. I can go stretch, take care of myself. Ooh. One last little piece of personal entertainment. I really don't know if I can do this while sitting, especially sitting at a desk. Let's see how. Okay, got this cord. Oh. You may have seen photos of me playing with my balls, video, what have you. If you're familiar with contact juggling, you'll notice that I don't have a very traditional way of playing with contact juggling. People who are really into contact juggling can often do all sorts of things that I can't do, but I also often find out that I play in a lot of ways that most of the contact jugglers don't. So, 6 one, half dozen of the other. I have a video that I made fucking more than a decade ago, certainly when I was deep in my Er0tic Rockstar time, where I think I was filming something for Jaya, Jaiya. If you're not familiar, she's fucking incredible. One of the gold standards for sure when it comes to this like good positive sexuality work. And I was helping film something for her. And I don't know, between filming of things, I just got, I was filmed for 5-10 minutes in front of a green screen, where I was playing with my ball. For all I know is this one, I don't know. It's old and scuffed and little cracks and things going, look at that. Things going on there that, anyway, so I was sharing the lessons, the ways in which this thing has been a teacher for me. This 4-inch acrylic ball, or really just spherical objects in general. I have a whole host of them if I could go looking for them, and even more in storage. Actually, I just pulled a bunch of new ones from storage. Well, not new, but maybe next time. And that the ways in which I liken this to pleasuring a woman, that this required me to learn how to deeply tune in to something outside of myself, to bring, which is why this is a little challenging for me right now, because I'm like here, I'm focused on you, this unknown listener, audience person over there, this microphone in front of me, the fact that I've got this camera here, this desk that's right at elbow level while I'm trying to move around, and with my attentional here, I'm also trying to do this, dropping it or breaking my, throwing it at my, camera, monitor, computer, any of the above, or anything else. That it taught me to put the fullness of my attention onto something outside of myself. And look at this. Maybe I do need to find a clear, unscuffed version of this. I really do get back to my stories eventually. If you just have this open in another tab and you're just hearing, then you're missing all of the little visuals that I'm creating for you. So that it taught me to tune in, to bring my attention to subtlety, and ever more subtlety, because the truth is, in doing these types of movements, it all requires, especially the things I can really do that I can't do in this position. It requires all of these little, like, both tiny muscles in the body as well as these micro movements of the musculature, micro tensing and micro relaxation. That's how I approach a woman's body, is both learning to make these micro adjustments in my own movements, whether with my pelvis or my hands or my mouth, or feeling into those micro movements in the body, constantly happening. She's constantly communicating with you, and only a small percentage of those communications are words. So a lot of it are these little micro movements of the body, and including in her nether regions, might we say, that there's so much happening internally and externally in her body that's happening at these just micro movements. Oh, sure. I start talking about pleasuring a woman, and and we start to get a few more viewers. That you have to. I learned. We'll start here. It's a little safer. To tune in to her body, to feel what is happening. To see where I go in my mind, where it's like I'm feeling in here. My friend and colleague, Reed Mahalko, he has a great metaphor for this. You ever try to make a wine glass thing, where you lick your finger and bring your finger around it, trying to get just that right amount of pressure and tension and speed to have it sing? There's a place in you that you go to when you're trying to do that. When you're trying to, like, find it. That place. That's the place that go into. You can think of it as to feel into energy, to feel into the subtleties of what's happening. Whether here or here. Feeling in what's going on in here. Feeling the body move around you. Oh, that was one great thing about Mulan in Thailand, is that she had a very active, responsive, very active, a lot of control over that too. So being able to feel those little shifts, those little changes, and then learn to be able to read it, to be able to feel like how to get the type of response that I want, and how to allow her body to relax and open to me more fully, to feel the wave of pleasure, like starting to move through the body, and instead of just meeting it with, okay, that means more, harder, um, bigger, harder, faster, more, which tends to be, what we're so often taught about sex, especially as we're getting like, you know, more and more turned on, that instead learning to be able to feel that those waves of pleasure and how they're wanting to move through the body, including with these little subtle micro tension and relaxations of the musculature and energetic body, if you're down to play with me there. That as you can learn to tune in and listen to that, feel that, however you want to relate to it, you can kind of move with that energy. So instead of just like meeting it with more like force, like, okay, it's flowing like this, let that wave kind of flow through her before guiding it into its next place. So it's not needing to meet everything with force all the time. Sometimes that can be good, but quite honestly, that tends to be most people's default when, like, what if it was an occasional color in your palette rather than your whole painting? Instead of just being able to follow that wave, how is that movement? Like, how do you move in conjunction with this wave of energy and micro-tensing and relaxation of the musculature that's happening in her body and in her pussy? Can I say that? I think so. I don't know. So that, yeah, there's something in her that just starts to open more and open more and open more, and those waves of pleasure can just start to amplify and go woof, woof, and move more fully through her entire body, rather than just like being like in her own groin, or you just feeling it in your own, because there is that way in which you can take that those waves of pleasure, those waves of sexual energy that may even be like you're helping generate or activate inside of her, to be able to like feel that like course through you and your body and through your whole body as well. So I was taming that down right there, and still like, whoa, I felt like I felt it, Some of you may even just have felt something from seeing or hearing, me feeling it. I guess it can happen that way, especially if you're practiced, especially if you're sensitive to energy. If maybe you didn't even know that you were. It's if you have some form of felt response in your body, or maybe some sort of tremors or shake or woof through your body. I've been just hearing or listening to me share about that, watching me share about that. Yeah, there's a lot there. Maybe you already know how to play with it. If not, reach out, because I'm sure I can help. That's my specialty. I love sexual energy. I love playing with sexual energy. I love talking about sexual energy. I love moving sexual energy. I love teaching about sexual energy. I love instigating sexual energy. I love it. I fucking love it. You hear that? You get it? I love it. I really do. Oh, so the truth is, like, for me, it's not about sex in the way that most people think about it. It's not like, especially now, just like fucking doesn't have this, like, isn't the thing that does it for me. I think that's a big part of why those slutting out adventures that I had when I first landed in Thailand didn't really do much for me, is because I need to be able to connect into that, to feel this authentic sexual energy fucking like move and moving, and that's like more powerful for me, more impactful for me, more enjoyable for me than just sticking it in without that. I don't know if that makes sense, but if it makes sense, and I'm sure it really makes sense. So I love being in that field, even if I'm not doing anything. Even if I'm just in, I mean, this is a good argument for me producing and directing this various erotic content is because, like, I love being in the energy. I can direct, I can produce. I don't need to be fully clothed and just help support other people through that experience. I just love being in that energy. I love being able to feel it through my body. And yeah, I love directing it, guiding it. So I used to lead a lot of workshops, like I'd call them hands-on, close-off workshops. God, I haven't thought about that in so long. I used to do a lot of it. Again, not necessarily, like with penetrative. In fact, usually the vast majority of the time not, but where high amounts of sexual energy were activated in this space, in this room, creating a communal erotic energetic field that many of the people in that space had never experienced before. And some people, they fucking live for it. Like myself, especially at the time. It's powerful. It's powerful. And I think that's something that we lack in our society. So instead, we have Pornhub or RedTube or whatever your preference is. I think for sure, Hannah will often just say Pornhub. That's our shared erotic space, but it's shared primarily in isolation. And it's like, yeah, you and millions of other people are tuned into this right now, but you are completely disconnected from one another as you sit behind your screen, probably alone in a room, in a darkened room. So what if you did have like safe, even condoned spaces to share a more communal erotic experience? Again, not necessarily about though maybe, I don't know. I mean, I've seen the entire range of these types of spaces. They can include full explicitness. They can one of the things that my wife and I really like to do these days is we lead something for couples and sometimes paired singles called Sexploration, a night of, what do we call it? Fuck, I need to look it back up. It might be Sexploration, a night of adoration and devotion. But that might have been one of my other events. Anyway, so the spaces where we would take anywhere from a dozen couples to one time in Byron Bay, Australia, at this tantra festival, we did this for over 100 couples, so like over 200 people in this big space who were leading through dropping into a deep state of presence with their partner, getting out their routines, their ruts, their just typical ways that they're normally like engage with each other sexually, and get into a place of playfulness and discovery and exploration with one another once more. And in that space, and we did a panties stay on and men underwear stays on through this night. So over these, I forget how long it was, 2 to 3 hours. Maybe that night was 3, but they stay on. So get creative. How sexy can you get when fucking is off the table? How sexy can you get? How much turn on can you create and experience in your own body and help like create and spark in your lover's body? And you know that there is not getting crossed in here. You can cross it as soon as you walk out these doors for all we care. In fact, fuck, like go for it, fuck. But I guess I'm not ending. Last story, probably. But in this space, we're just gonna get as sexy as we can be. Panties stay on. And there's something about that boundary being in place that actually can often instigate a greater sense of creativity and exploration and going places and doing things with your lover that maybe you normally don't or hadn't. So how did I get onto that? Communal erotic experiences. Fucking love them and love creating them. And that's one that my wife and I have created, which is all the better because, like, finding our journey of how we can create or do things together, express, like, I don't know, our shared work in the world has been slow. It's been very slow. I'm the primary reason behind that. I tried with every major love of mine in the past, and I just had one fiery crashing down fuck up from it after another that I was just like, no, nope, not gonna do that. Nope, let you do your thing, I do my thing. That's all. You do your thing, I do my thing. And then, like, piece by piece, we just started to slowly lean in. In many ways, we're still leaning in. There's still so much more. We've done some work with couples, including some well-paid and very powerful work. But to date, it's been very here and there, like less than once a year, and then we started doing our sexploration event, and we've done that we've only done it maybe a dozen times tops, but we've done it in like 6 countries. So that's pretty awesome. Maybe not all countries because I'm counting Hawaii, and Hawaii's not a country, but it's very distinct from mainland United States at the same time. And then there was London, UK, Byron Bay, Australia. How the fuck did we do this? What am I blanking on? I'm gonna have to get back to you on this one too. That's what happens when I'm streaming at nearly 1 a.m. Sexploration, Night of Adoration and Devotion, super sexy. A lot of fun, really connected, very healing for a lot of couples. Like, we had one couple tell us that, like, they were talking separation or divorce or ending their relationship, and they ended up coming to our event. And actually, I think that event was Canada. That was one of them. In Vancouver at the Co-Creative Sex Summit. I got it this time. Where I was flown up there is the first stop of my book tour that turns into the only stop because right after COVID hit. Anyway, so up there, in addition to my speaking at the reading at the book at a bookstore, which is awesome. I wanted to do more of that. That was actually a lot of fun. And then leading 2 presentation workshops at this conference, and then in the evening of Saturday night, I think my wife and I led this exploration event. This was probably for maybe 20 couples, something like that. And why am I bringing this one up? So we've only done it we've only done it maybe a dozen times, but in like 6 different pretty awesome locales, including at least 1 or 2 that I'm just not remembering at the moment. Creative, erotic, communal spaces. They're powerful. They can really open something up. They can they can be really freeing. It's just we can carry so much shame around our sexuality. That's just from the ways in which it's compartmentalized and kind of pushed down. It has all these rules around it. And certainly something that you're supposed to do behind closed doors and tucked away from the rest of your life. But to actually be seen as a sexual being by people who you're not engaging with sexually, that can be very powerful. To feel, to be in that space, and even just the energy to hear the orgasmic sounds of others around you, without any like predatory nature involved in any of this. Just each couple in their own little love bubble, encapsulated by a giant love bubble holding us all. That's the way we like to think about it. that's there's something very powerful in it. So that's my stories for tonight. There's so many. I mean, the things I've shared here are all very recent, and as spicy as some of those started to get, they're nothing. I really don't want to say they're nothing, but the you know, they're not the Er0tic Rockstar chapter. So help instigate it from me. Send me messages, ask me questions. If you're watching this on replay or VOD, video on demand, recording later, what are you curious about? What do you want to know? How can I help you? Any of the above. Anything I say tonight to spark something in you, anything you want to know more, you got more curiosity about, send it my way. That's all. I like it. I like it when you engage with me. It fuels me and gives me much more space to share more deeply with you. Have a beautiful night. And one last thing, one last plug. So, Decoding Women podcast on Tuesdays. We are, we're doing 2 parts of our podcast, and the Tuesday part of it is bringing attractive, interesting, intelligent, influential women on who are willing to really dive in with me and let me get in there with my verbal scalpel. I don't know if that's a word I should be using here, to kind of peel away the layers of the onion that is you, to help decode who you really are, what you really want, what you crave, what you're yearning for from men, from a man, the best of your experiences with men, the worst of your experiences with men, the things you have learned, the things you're still learning, and how to decode and translate these things in a way that men can understand more easily and take in more deeply, as well as help you understand yourself more. So, being that we don't yet have no audience around this, and that we don't have here's our library of episodes that we've done that you can really get and understand what you're saying yes to, finding our initial guests is a little bit more of a stretch. So if you're watching this and you're like, ooh, me, send me a message, support@evolvedmasculine.com. That will get to me eventually. That'll get to me. Send me a message through wherever you're seeing this, or DM me, or whatever the fuck. Find me and let me know, and we'll open a conversation. If it's a fit, then great, let's do it. Let's get real, let's get vulnerable and intimate, see what there is to discover. All right, with that,